At this time, it is estimated that there are between 10 and 15 million wild boars living around the world. They are found in large numbers across the continents of Asia, Europe, the Americas, and Australia, and they pose a significant risk to agricultural practices and the ecosystems of native lands. Wild boars are exceptionally dangerous foes for any hunter to face because of their destructive power and their ability to sneak around without being discovered. Because of this, hunting them is usually a difficult task that requires patience, skill, and a well-defined approach. After climbing to the peak of the mountain, we were able to get a better view. Because we had such a broad perspective, there was no way that the wild boars that were moving below could have evaded our attention. We promptly opened fire, but regrettably, none of the rounds found them. Barlow and I were the ones who opened fire. The herd of boars abruptly shifted their course and began moving in a different direction. We had no choice but to follow them right away. There they are, the alpha in charge, with the herd following soon after in tight pursuit. The rapid beating of my heart caused me to raise my rifle and aim it at a large one. It was a flawless shot. The bullet hit the target exactly where it was aimed, causing it to hurtle down the slope while it was in motion. Another tense pursuit was taking on in the site where Chad was at the time. He made a hasty pursuit of his target and fired his weapon, but the boar ran away so rapidly that the bullets only grazed him. He refused to give up and continued searching for him. He continued to fire. On this occasion, the tremendous barrage was successful in bringing the boar down from the hill. As we continued our search, Barlow and I both noticed a shadowy figure moving across the mountain on the other side of us. Our guns were hoisted, our scopes were adjusted, and we fired without uttering a single word. However, the bullet was unable to get through the dense undergrowth. The boar did not send out a scream of agony until the second shot was fired, at which point it fell. Following the determination of the animal's location, we fired one more shot to be certain that there would be no unexpected counterattack. We had been standing there for half an hour when all of a sudden, a herd of wild boars came smashing through the thick vegetation in front of us. That was our time to shine. As swiftly as possible, my teammates took position from two different directions, ensuring that no boar could escape. A series of gunshots were fired in rapid succession. After being struck, the first boar fell to the ground immediately later. The rest of them dispersed in a state of panic, attempting to run, but unfortunately, a couple of them did not make it out alive. It was obvious that the herd was familiar with this terrain, which made the search more anxious than it had ever been before. They weren't just flying through the air. Their movements were deliberate, and they were headed in the direction of the mountain summit where the forest became more dense. From our vantage point on the slope of the hill, we were able to observe shadowy figures moving through the tree canopy. We remained steadfast and immediately began firing our weapons. The frightened boars dispersed in a state of anguish. The location on the slope where it was sitting was hit by a bullet, which caused it to stumble, lose momentum, and go down the slope. During our descent, the mountain was illuminated by the final rays of the evening sun, which was just enough to assist us in locating a target. This particular slope was exposed, and there were not many trees for the boar to hide in. That provided us with the ideal opportunity to eliminate it in a clear and decisive manner, without any resistance whatsoever. They were under the misguided impression that descending the mountain would provide them with protection. They were completely unaware that we had already established blockades at each and every exit. Because we used a proactive strategy, it didn't take us very long to eliminate a number of other targets. They lay still in the air after being shot and rolling across the ground on the ground. Howdy, $15,000 in total. The amount of damage that my family endured as a result of a herd of wild boars destroying our orchard and our food storage facility is equal to that amount. Moreover, they were the cause of a potentially lethal illness outbreak that occurred among the livestock that we kept on our farm. In order to prevent the situation from getting out of hand, I, along with a few other local people, had no alternative but to arm ourselves and go hunting. Our sole objective is to ensure that the wild boar problem is entirely eradicated. The approved hunting areas were our destination, and we reached them at the crack of dawn. The pack of hounds sprang into action almost immediately and quickly focused their attention on a new victim. It was immediately the team's attention that was drawn to their loud barking. We were prepared to act. In addition, we did not hesitate to pull the shot as soon as the boars came into view from a distance. This was the cost that they were required to bear. Having said that, that was only the beginning. More difficulties were sure to be in store for us. Oh my goodness. Continuing our search for another target, we continued our movement. In an instant, a massive boar emerged from the bushes that were located along the trail. I was taken aback for a brief time, but my urge to hunt immediately took over, and I was on my way. It was I who pulled the trigger. There was a shot fired. Within a short period of time, a number of rounds were fired. The pig stumbled and eventually slumped, and its labored breathing continued to lessen with time. The dogs had become powerless in the face of it. Shortly about half an hour, the region reverted back to its typical state of silence. While we waited for our next opportunity, we continued to move in a patient manner. Oh my goodness. Last but not least, that recognizable sound resounded. A sign that was more than just encouraging. It was electrifying. From the thick underbrush, the unmistakable figure of a wild boar suddenly burst into view, crashing through the low shrubs in a desperate attempt to flee. There was no time to hesitate. I instinctively raised my rifle, lined up the sights, and pulled the trigger. The shot rang out sharply through the woods. The bullet found its mark, striking the animal, but to my frustration, it wasn't enough to bring it down immediately. The boar let out a guttural cry and bolted, wounded but still full of raw power. Chaos erupted as our hunting dogs, trained and relentless, surged forward in pursuit. For what felt like an eternity, we were forced to follow, stumbling through tangled roots and ducking low branches as the boar crashed ahead, blood trailing behind it. The dogs barked furiously, nipping at its heels, trying to slow it down. We had scarcely paused for breath, barely 2 minutes of frantic movement, when a new rustling sound came from the dense thicket ahead. Something was moving fast, breaking twigs and pushing through the foliage with force. All around us the forest seemed to tense, every instinct sharpened, every muscle tightened. With hearts pounding in unison, we swiftly raised our weapons, fingers poised over the triggers. There was no time for second-guessing. Then, there, in the blink of an eye, a dark form burst through the bush. My partner fired. The shot cracked like thunder, and the bullet tore through the air, finding its target with surgical precision. The boar collapsed mid-stride, its momentum carrying it forward just a few feet before it slammed into the earth with a heavy thud. It was a perfect shot, clean, fast, and fatal. The silence that followed was broken only by the sharp echo of the gunfire rolling through the trees. But there was no time to celebrate. The report of the rifle had stirred the forest, and in its wake, more boars were roused from their hiding places. The undergrowth erupted with movement as startled animals scattered in every direction. The plan had worked. Now, it was my turn to act. My post was along the edge of the open grassland, a natural funnel where fleeing boars would inevitably run. I repositioned swiftly, my pulse steadying as I prepared for the next wave. A few tense seconds passed. Then I saw them, first one boar, then a second, and within moments, a whole drove of them emerged, thundering across the clearing like a stampede of armored beasts. Their eyes wild, their tusks gleaming, they charged with unrelenting force. I didn't flinch. I gripped my rifle tightly, planted my feet firmly, and started firing. One shot, then another. I adjusted my aim, controlled my breathing, and focused on the rhythm. Each squeeze of the trigger sent a bullet with purpose. The grass trembled beneath their hooves, the air thick with tension and adrenaline. The sound of gunfire blended with the heavy breathing of men and dogs, creating a soundtrack of primal survival. In that moment, I wasn't just a hunter. I was part of the forest, moving with its rhythms, answering its challenges, and for every step forward those boars took, I was ready, with calm eyes, a steady hand, and the resolve to see it through. One of them was struck and sustained injuries. Howdy! After moving a few hundred meters further from the grassland, I was abruptly confronted by a wild pig that sprang out directly in front of me. I instantly raised my rifle and fired a shot that confirmed my victory, even when viewed from a rather great distance. It was a successful shot that drove the beast to its knees with a sense of finality. Immediately after that, I was able to locate another boar by following the grunts and barking of the dogs. Despite the fact that the entire pack had surrounded it, it ran away as soon as it noticed an opener. After taking a big breath, I aimed through the scope from a distance of 50 meters away, and then I pulled the trigger. On the other hand, this boar was a tough one. It was only after a number of shots that it was finally brought down. After that, the dogs poured in, anxious to get their free food and water.